I'm Vanessa, your wine advisor at Vivant. I'm happy to welcome you here in our online experience focusing on Burgundy. Our experience is interactive and we encourage you to participate. So who is with us today? Please send me a message through your chat, and if you have specific expectation, I invite you to send a message through the chat and I will try during the session to answer most of your questions. Feel free to raise them up anytime. Okay, so who is here? Do we have Michael? Do we have Goran? Hi, yes, we have Julie with us, we have Goran, we have Lina and Carlos. Good, perfect. Yeah, so let's start.
One region.
So, first let me immerse you through the beautiful vineyards of Burgundy with these nice images. I hope you enjoy your immersion into Burgundy. We will be together for almost an hour and I will guide you through your Burgundy experience and help you to learn the winemaking process for white wine and understand the Chardonnay grape variety. Also, I will help you to understand the notion of terroir, which is called climat in Burgundy, and Burgundy wine classification. We will also learn about winemaking for red wine and understand the specificities of Pinot Noir, and learn about the biodynamic agriculture compared to conventional agriculture. And of course, we will learn how to taste wine like a professional through the 5 wines you received in your wine box.
Let's start.
So, let's start with geography and history.
By high-speed rail, just 1.5 hours from Paris and 2 hours from Geneva. There are 5 deliciously distinct wine-growing regions in Burgundy: Chablis and Grand Auxerrois, Côte de Nuit, Côte de Beaune, Côte Chalonnaise, and Mâconnais. The main grapes cultivated in Burgundy are Chardonnay for white wines and Pinot Noir for red wines. Burgundy enjoys a temperate continental climate, perfect for viticulture and wine aficionados alike. Winter tends to be cold and crisp. Spring is gentle, but with a risk of late frost. Summer is hot and dry, and early autumn is usually mild and sunny. Overall, the temperature is cool, even on summer nights, and this is the key for bringing acidity, finesse, and complexity to our wines. There are 3 natural advantages for the vineyards of Burgundy. They are planted on fairly steep hillsides, from 200 to 500 meters in height, protecting the vines from heavy winds and rain. These hillsides experience only 7 to 800 millimeters of rain each year, substantially less than the typical 1,000 millimeters that falls west of the hills. Most of the vineyards face east or southeast, allowing better exposure to the sun. The soil boasts very effective natural drainage.
Before moving to our first wine tasting, I want to come back on a few natural factors that are key to understand our Meursault. The wine is made from Chardonnay grape. Only Chardonnay grape. And the name Chardonnay originated from a village called Chardonnay in Mâconnais, in Burgundy. The earliest known reference to Chardonnay wine was written by monks in the year 1330. And now, Chardonnay is the most planted white grape variety in the world, thanks to a high reputation of Chardonnay-based Burgundy wines. So Chardonnay is used for the production of sparkling wine in Champagne region, but its reputation comes from Burgundy, where Chablis offers light body unoaked fruit and mineral wines, and Côte de Beaune offers full body complex white wines aged in oak, with fruits, citrus to tropical fruits, butter, cream, toast, sometimes nutty flavors. And it's cultivated in the village of Meursault, which enjoys a moderate continental climate, bringing ripeness and keeping acidity in the grapes. So this wine is from 2015. It was a warm vintage with a very hot summer, producing a wine that has a capacity to age for more than 10 years. So now it's time to take your tasting guide and we will go through it together. So you can see it covers 2 pages. On the left side we have wine aromas and flavors, so they could be primary, secondary and tertiary, and I will talk about that later on. And as you can see, we have different main clusters, and then we can get specific with the different aromas or flavors we will get in the wine. But when we are going to taste it, we are going to follow the wine tasting approach. So let's go through it together while tasting our wine. The first thing we are going to look at is appearance. The wine here is clear, meaning that there is nothing in the wine that we can see through the glass. It's not hazy. The intensity is medium, so keep in mind that we are comparing these wines with other wines produced in different wine regions, and sometimes it's very pale, you barely see any color. Here it's medium, we see through the glass, but we also see a nice lemon color. So the wine is clear, pale and lemon. Now let's smell it. Let's have a first nose. So the first thing you need to assess is whether the wine is clean or faulty. This is basically what we ask you when you go to a restaurant and the waiter pour wine and they ask you something about it. Well, that's what you need to check, if it's clean or faulty. So basically, is it corked or not? And the smell of cork smells like damp cardboard. So do we have this here? I don't think so. No, we don't have any cork wine. So it's clean. What about the intensity of the aromas we get on the nose? I think the intensity is medium to medium plus. It's quite intense actually. And most importantly, it's quite complex. So, in terms of aromas, what do we get? Feel free to raise some aromas you could find in the glass through our chat. So, who gets? I get some citrus notes, a little bit of lemon, but I also get riper fruit. As I said, 2015 was a warm vintage. So I get ripe pears, a little bit of white peaches. So these are all primary aromas, and they are the expression of Chardonnay grape, also the expression of the microclimate we have in Meursault, and most of the time primary aromas are flowers, fruits, vegetal, aromatic notes. Yes, Michael got peach, Peter, melon. That's interesting. Melon is considered as a tropical fruit, so to me it would feel a little bit more riper, more tropical, but yeah, maybe green melon. I would agree with that. And yes, Michael is totally right. Actually, the nose is dominated by secondary aromas. And secondary aromas are coming through the winemaking. And we will see later on that winemaking techniques in Meursault and in Burgundy in general are very specific because the wine has been aged in oak. So what do we get? We get, yeah, some butter, cream, but also a toastiness. It's a little bit biscuity. And I also get sweet spices, a little bit of vanilla. However, I don't get much tertiary aroma in this wine. Keep in mind that this wine is quite young, 2015, and tertiary aromas are developing with age. So from that wine, what could we expect if we taste it in 5 or 10 years? We could expect more almonds, nuttiness, and maybe also the expression of more minerality, maybe more chalk. Okay, enough on the nose. Now let's enjoy the palate of this wine. So, I see your question, Peter. Tertiary, secondary, primary. I will talk about that when we cover the flavors on the palate. So, first, on the palate, the first thing we assess is the sweetness. And here our wine is dry, meaning there is no residual sugar in the wine. So we don't have any feeling of sweetness. And sweetness, you usually feel it on the tip of your tongue. So if you have a DOP, just take a little bit of your wine on the tip of your tongue, and you will see that it doesn't feel sweet at all. But maybe to you it feels a little bit sweet, but that's actually the complexity of the fruits and aromas and flavors in the wine. So the wine is dry, and all the wine we are going to taste are dry because in Burgundy we only produce dry wines. Then let's think about the acidity level. Maybe you can taste again, and you will feel the acidity on the side of your tongue. This is really, it makes you salivate, and it has this very refreshing effect that is counterbalancing the alcohol level. So here the acidity is quite high. And why is that? You probably saw that when you saw the natural factors, is Burgundy is in a cool climate. And that cool climate helps to retain cool nights that retain acidity in the grapes. So that's why we get this acidity in the wine, and it's very refreshing. We don't talk about tannins because there is no tannin in white wine, but I will talk about tannins when we cover red wine. So now let's talk about the body. So the body is really the mouthfeel you have in the mouth. And here it's quite creamy, it's quite rich. Actually, it's a full body wine with a lot in the mouth. Is very rich and opulent, we could say. Do you all agree with this? So, flavors. I'm going to answer your question, Peter. So, the main difference between primary, secondary, and tertiary aromas is they are influenced by different things, different factors. Primary aromas are influenced by everything which is happening in the vineyard. So that means the microclimate, the grape variety, the type of soil, the aspect, and all that. Secondary aromas come with different winemaking techniques, and we will cover that afterwards, but it's really the expression of aromas and flavors between the grape transformed to wine. And tertiary aromas, they come with age. So when the wine is old, if you taste today a wine from 2009, 2010, you will probably feel much more tertiary aromas. And we will get the chance to cover this through our tasting. And now, a very important factor also when you taste wine is the length. So the length is how long in your mouth are aromas and flavors lasting. And also how long in the mouth the refreshing effect of the wine is lasting. I feel it's really lingering. We have the fruit coming up, we also have a lot of toastiness staying in the palate. It's really, really long. So, what about the quality of this wine? I think we thought it was well balanced because of this fresh acidity counterbalancing the alcohol. So balance is key. Then there is quite some complexity. We have found out different aromas and flavors clusters, be it in primary aromas and secondary aromas, so I would tick complexity as well. Then we have the intensity. It's quite rich and intense, we say it on the nose, and it's long. When you can tick these 4 criteria, you are facing an outstanding wine. And that's really a Meursault, that's why it's so popular around the world. It's a very complex and fantastic wine. So, now it's time to throw a couple of questions. So let's start with question 1. What factors influences the style of a wine? Is it the climate? Is it the grape variety? Is it winemaking? Or all of the above? All of the above, yes. Yes, Julie, you are right. Grape variety is influencing the style, but not only. Also, as you see, for secondary aromas, there is an impact of the vinification. And the last one was about the climate, and the climate is also influencing the wine. You are very good. Yes, you're right, Goran. So, let's move on, and I will send you another question. Question 2. The lemon, pear, butter and toast that we can find on the nose of our Meursault are the reflection of winemaking techniques, grape variety, aging time in the barrels, or aging time in the bottle. So what do we get? Grape variety, aging time in the barrels. Yes, both answers are right actually. Grape variety and aging time in the barrels. So grape variety for primary aromas. So that's where we get the lemon, the pear from, and butter and cream are secondary aromas, and they are coming from winemaking techniques. So I hope you enjoyed this first wine tasting, and in general, aromas and flavors are influenced, we have seen, by the grape variety, the terroir, and also winemaking techniques. So let's now look at white winemaking in Burgundy.
The Chardonnay grape's journey to becoming a white wine of Burgundy begins with the grape harvest in autumn, before the first frost. After harvest, grapes are sorted, destemmed, and promptly pressed into juice. The sugars from this juice will be converted into alcohol through the process of fermentation. It's a pretty straightforward equation. Thanks to the magic of fermentation, sugar plus yeast equals alcohol and carbon dioxide. Each winemaker has their own style. Some will choose to ferment their wine in oak barrels, but most will choose non-reactive cement or stainless steel tanks for the initial fermentation. Each choice the winemaker makes will affect the finished product. Oak tends to add a spicy character as well as micro-oxygenation, while non-reactive vessels yield a more neutral, cleaner flavor. After the first fermentation, it's time to age and bottle the wine. In Burgundy, this aging process typically lasts from 12 to 24 months. It's a long and costly process that is essential to developing the sophistication and subtlety that white Burgundy wines are prized for. The wine is aged in oak barrel produced in Burgundy from locally grown oak trees. A single oak barrel can cost from 800 to as much as 1,000 euros. The wine now undergoes a second malolactic fermentation that adds more complexity to the wine, softening acids and bringing more texture to the palate with creamy, buttery flavors. The choice of oak also affects the flavor of our developing wine. New oak imparts sweet and spicy notes.
I could talk about winemaking, but I'm pleased to introduce Emmanuel Sala, the winemaker of Clos Marémange in Pommard and the winemaker of Meursault as well. So let's discover together how passionate and dedicated he is.
We are now underground in the cellar of Château de Pommard. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about the maturation of our wine in oak.
Alors, l'intérêt du bois, pour moi, ce n'est pas d'apporter une touche boisée ou toastée au vin, enfin l'intérêt principal, c'est surtout d'apporter une fraction d'oxygène tout au long de l'élevage du vin qui va permettre au tanin d'évoluer favorablement, de s'arrondir. Dans le jargon, on dit se polymériser. Vous avez remarqué que les vins jeunes asséchaient la bouche parce que les tanins ont cette propriété de précipiter les protéines. Et en se polymérisant pendant l'élevage, et après tout au long de sa vie, plus le vin sera vieux, plus les tanins vont perdre ses facultés. C'est pour ça que les vieux vins sont souvent beaucoup plus souples que les jeunes. Mais ne serait-ce que déjà travailler avec du bois, ça arrondit déjà énormément les tanins. Deuxième partie, c'est comme pour les vins blancs, ce que j'expliquais tout à l'heure, élevage sur lit. Les vins qui vont rester 20 mois, 22 mois sur leur lit, il y a une autolyse, les lits se désagrègent et libèrent dans le vin ce qu'on appelle des macromolécules qui vont apporter aussi bien au niveau aromatique qu'en complexité qu'en gras, quelque chose de beaucoup plus intéressant. Et puis traditionnellement, la fermentation malolactique aussi se fait en tonneau en Bourgogne.
So in the end, Manu, a little bit of philosophy. Do you think making wine is an exact science or is it more a state of art?
L'œnologie est une science exacte, mais l'œnologie n'est rien dans l'élaboration des vins. L'œnologue est au docteur, et quand on a besoin d'un docteur, c'est qu'on est malade. Donc l'œnologie peut être une science exacte, la viticulture et la vinification, absolument pas. Et plus j'y vieillis, plus je me rends compte que c'est loin, mais vraiment loin d'être une science exacte. Après, un art, faudrait être vraiment d'une prétention sans nom pour se prétendre artiste. Il y a un grand artiste, alors je ne sais pas si c'est le grand architecte de la nature ou si c'est la nature elle-même, l'artiste, mais en tout cas, le vigneron, il est juste un interprète. Alors on essaye d'interpréter le plus juste possible.
So, you probably understood what is really specific in Burgundy is the time the wine spends in the barrels. And it influences the wine in a few ways. First, it micro-oxygenates the wine. This helps the wine to develop more complexity in terms of aromas and flavors, and also it helps to bring acidity, alcohol, and aromas and flavors in balance. In the barrel, there is a natural fermentation happening. It's called the malolactic fermentation. It softens the acidity because lactic acid are softer, and it brings lactic flavors such as butter and cream. So now you can understand why we have these secondary aromas in our Meursault. We have this butter and cream because it's coming from the malolactic fermentation. And we also have some toastiness, which is coming from the barrels. So, it's time now to taste our second wine. And I would like you to participate and to send me your thoughts. So now, let's look at that wine. Can somebody throw me what's the appearance like? Is it clear or not? What's the intensity level? And what's the color? You can even compare it to wine number one. So, who threw the ball on the chat? Is the wine clear or hazy? It's clear, thank you, Julie. What's the intensity level? It's clear, medium, yes, Michael, and the color is lemon. Actually, if you compare both wines, you don't see any difference in terms of colors. So yes, it is right. So too bad you drink it all, because now we should stick our nose in it. So first question, is it clean? Do we have any damp cardboard type of aromas? I don't think so. So yes, it's clean. What about the intensity? The intensity is medium. And what about aromas and flavors? Is it like Meursault or different? To me, it feels fresher. It feels more, there is also some lemon, but I would say more pear, a little bit of quince. We don't have any stone fruits or tropical fruits. It's very fresh. And also I get a little bit of floral notes, something like honeysuckle. And again, we also have some complexity, some secondary aromas. I would agree with apple, that's true. I would say more red apple than green apple. There is not a greenish character to it, or yellow. And then, to me, there is much more finesse and complexity in this wine. And why is this? Actually, here we tasted on wine number one a Meursault, and here we have a Ladois Premier Cru Les Gréchons. And later on, we will talk about that notion Premier Cru, and we will talk about the classification of wine in Burgundy. But Premier Cru is, of course, a higher standard wine, and usually there is much more finesse, much more complexity. So here I get a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of bee wax as well, delicate brioche, toasty notes, but it's not really oaked. And also, I get more mineral character, something like chalkiness. So this is coming from the soil, and it's a tertiary aroma because it develops with age. So I see some of you already tasted the wine, so let's assess the palate. It's dry. No surprise, all the wine we are going to taste are going to be dry, so no residual sugar. The acidity is quite high. No tannins. The body, I've seen it, it's full body, but I would say it's not as creamy, not as rich as Meursault. It's much more delicate, much more in finesse. But there is a lot of intensity of flavors. And I would say it's even multi-layered. You get the fruits, you get the flowers, and then you get also some secondary aromas, sweet spices. And what lasts in the end is this mineral touch. I've seen some of you think there was hay. Hay is an oxidative aroma of flavors, and I'm not sure we get that here. But yeah, maybe it can be misunderstood with this minerality, the feeling that it's clean and sharp, maybe. And the length is long as well. It's not a Puligny, it's a Ladois Premier Cru Les Gréchons. So, to me, in terms of quality, we are one step higher with this Ladois Premier Cru Les Gréchons. It's balanced, it's complex, it's intense, but very multi-layered, and everything is very in finesse, and it lasts long. So, in conclusion, of course, you can judge the wine with your own criteria and decide whether you like it or not. But to evaluate objectively its quality, you can draw that conclusion based on the 4 criteria I gave you. This is valid for all the wine: balance, intensity, complexity, and length. So if you can tick them all, yeah, once again, it's a very good to outstanding wine. So feel free to send your comments and impression about this wine on the chat.
Wine regions.
So, no comments about quality. I'm sure you all loved it, and that's great. So now, let's talk about a notion that is really specific to Burgundy. In Burgundy, terroir refers to the unique and authentic interaction between the plant, an ensemble of natural elements, and hard work by winemakers. And it's the basis for our entire AOC system. Burgundy is composed of hundreds of climats, reflecting the characteristics of each plot, and making up a unique mosaic of vineyards. In Burgundy, there is a multitude of soils, with more or less limestone and clay content. And the climats are the ultimate expression of terroir in Burgundy. In total, there is 1,247 climats or vineyards, so distinct areas where we grow vine, and each one has a different soil composition or aspect. Everything varies from one plot to another. And here, for example, we tasted these 2 wines. We have Meursault, which is one appellation, one village. We had Ladois, another village. And what you could see named Les Gréchons is a climat of Burgundy. So, what about wine classification? Actually, in 1855, a botanist, Jules Laval, wrote a classification of Burgundy wine. And the same year, Bordeaux also established the celebrated classification of its chateau. But the difference between Bordeaux and Burgundy is mainly the fact that in Burgundy it's the terroir, it's the soil, it's the parcel which is classified, and not the chateau, the owner, or other dwelling. As you can see now on the pyramid, in Burgundy, half of the wine are regional wine, with grapes coming from the entire region, from Chablis to Mâconnais. Within this category, you also find sparkling wines, called Crémant de Bourgogne or Bourgogne Mousseux, and wine made from other grapes than Chardonnay or Pinot Noir. For example, Bourgogne Aligoté. It's the name of the appellation, and Aligoté is the name of the grape variety. Or Bourgogne Passe-Tout-Grain, which is usually a blend between Pinot Noir and other grapes variety, mostly Gamay. Then another half is village wine, wine with the name of a village on it. We tasted 2 of them already, and only 10% of them have been classified as more premium with the mention of Premier Cru on it, which is the case of our Ladois Premier Cru Les Gréchons. So, the appellation is the name of the village and the mention Premier Cru. Finally, at the top of the pyramid, a very small proportion of our wine, less than 2%, are Grand Cru. They have their specific appellation name. Maybe you've heard about Échezeaux, Corton, Musigny, Chambertin, Montrachet. These are some examples of Grand Cru. They are high quality wines and they command a very premium price.
But how does the winemaker produce a red wine? The biggest difference with white winemaking is the timing of the juice pressing. With red wine, the pressing won't happen until the fermentation is complete. Because the skins are not removed right away, they will impart color and characteristic flavor. Winemakers will run a few pumping overs.
Sorry for that, we've got disrupted with red wine making technique, but no, we stay here and it's time for us to taste our wine. So let's illustrate how two different terroirs taste by comparing glass number 3 and glass number 4. They are both made from the same grape variety. It's wine made 100% out of Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir grape is one of the earliest varieties of grape to be cultivated with the purpose of making wine. As early as the 1st century after Christ, ancient Romans were producing wine using the Pinot Noir grape. Pinot Noir is a complicated grape to grow, one of the most complicated. Why? Because it's very fragile. It has a thin skin and it explains why the color of the wine is light and with light tannins as well. Wines are delicate and silky. In general, we have a lot of red fruits in Pinot Noir, and with maturity, with time, it develops a very complex bouquet of sweet spices, forest flower, mushroom, gamey flavors. So, let's look at these two wines. First, it's interesting to compare the colors. So, tell me, what do you think of the color for glass number 3 and the color for glass number 4? I give you a tip, both of them are clear. Usually most of the wine are clear. When it's hazy, it's usually a fault, or it can be a decision from the winemaker not to filter the wine. This is the case for many natural wine. So, what do I get? On wine number 3, we have the intensity, which is pale and ruby. Yes. So actually nobody answered. I suggest we will have a quiz in the end. We will run a survey to ask you what you think about that experience. So please concentrate on the tasting and on the explanation we do. So I'm asking you, what's the color for wine number 3? It's clear, it's pale, we can really see through the glass, and it's ruby. Yeah, wine 3 is bright and ruby. It's actually pale and ruby. Make sure you use the right terminology. And on glass number 4, I agree, it's a little bit darker, but it's still pale. But the color is different. And I've seen a comment saying like wine number 4 seems older, and that's true. And why is that? Because the color is more on garnet. Yes. So, on the nose, let's look at the condition of the wine, the intensity. So let's start with wine number 3. We're going to do the nose and the palate, and then we compare it with wine number 4. So wine number 3 is Nuit Saint-Georges. It's actually in Côte de Nuit, in the north of Beaune. It's clean. I don't get any damn cardboard. The intensity is medium to medium plus. Yeah, there is a lot sticking out of that glass, and it's quite complex as well. I've got a little bit of flowers, I would say peonies, maybe a little bit of violet, but more peonies. Then, is it more red fruit or black fruit? Actually, in red wine you have two main clusters. And that's a good question to ask yourself. is this wine profile is more on red fruits, strawberry, raspberry, or is it more on black fruits, blackberries, black currants, etc. Here actually it's more red fruits. We have ripe cherries, a little bit of strawberries as well, but more, wild strawberries, not really very sweet strawberries. And yes, red fruits. Bravo, Julie, bravo, Michael. Peter, you'll be better next time. And then we also have secondary aroma. We have spices. I get cinnamon, a little bit of white pepper as well, and I get vegetal characters. And this is more tertiary. It feels like you are walking in a forest and it feels like forest floor. So here we could say moss, maybe a little bit of mushroom, but really a tiny bit. Curcuma, I agree as well. Good. I see a lot of you are inspired, so let's taste the wine. If you want to enhance the aromas and flavors in your palate, you can bring air in your mouth and do this. It helps to oxygenate the wine in your mouth and it enhances the flavors you get. So the wine is dry, the acidity is also quite high, and for the same reason, because of the climate in Burgundy. Now we talk about the tannins. So what are the tannins? The tannins are coming from the skin of the grape. And you will see later on when we talk about winemaking for red, there is a period of time where the skin are macerating with the juice. And the longer it lasts, the more tannins we are going to extract. And tannins in the mouth can be felt around your teeth, and it has a sort of grip. It feels a little bit grippy. So here, the level of tannins, actually in Pinot Noir, as I said, the skins are very thin, so we don't have that much tannins. Here we are between low and medium. The tannins feel very smooth. It's not drying, it's not grippy, it's not green, so I would say smooth. And it's very, usually we think that Pinot Noir is more feminine, is a red wine for people who don't like very tannin and very full body wine. So coming to the body, it's actually light body. We don't have, if we have in your life a Bordeaux wine or even a wine from California, from Napa Valley, a Cabernet Sauvignon, or what else, Syrah for example, you will have a lot in your mouth. It's quite some weight. Here it's very delicate, very silky, very thin, so the wine is light body. In terms of flavors, I get everything I said on the nose, so red fruits, vegetal characters, sweet spices, but maybe also a little bit of game. And this is something we find in many Nuits Saint-Georges, is this wilderness, these gamey flavors. And in terms of length, it's not super long, I would say medium plus, but it's very pleasant. And what's really interesting in this wine is we really had primary, secondary and tertiary aromas. So very complex. Okay, time for questions. Get ready. I will throw question number 3. Remind me, what is in your third glass? Cabernet Sauvignon? Chardonnay, Tempranillo, or Pinot Noir? Good! Everybody is on track. We are tasting Pinot Noir. So that was wine number 3. Now we said we're going to compare it with glass number 4. So we said the color is more garnet. And yes, I've seen some interesting comments. Why? Because it's a little bit orange. It's red and orange. It goes to amber, but in the middle there is this garnet color. So here the wine is a Volnay. We are in Côte de Beaune, south of Beaune, and it's also a Premier Cru. But you might have noticed that there is not a specific name for that Premier Cru. Basically, it's a blend of different plots, different climat in Volnay, in the village of Volnay, that are all classified in Premier Cru. So that's why we can have this Volnay Premier Cru. On the nose, it's clean. What about the intensity? Yes, you're right, Carlos. At the end, they will all be amber. Be it for white wine or red wine, for very old wine, it gets amber. So at first I thought the wine was a little bit closed, I couldn't get much. So when it's the case, don't worry, just swirl your glass, it oxygenates the wine. And smell it again. And actually, to me, it feels much riper. We are still on red fruits, mostly. Cherries. But also, I would say a little bit of black fruit, black currant, but very fresh. Not cooked or like a syrup or blackcurrant cream. No, something blackcurrant, very fresh and refreshing. A little bit of fig, yes, but it's usually something we keep for fortified wine. So I invite you to follow our experience for fortified wine, where you get a lot of figs, dates, and nuts, and all that. Cherries, yes, I agree. What else? Do we get any secondary aromas? Here I can feel the oak a little bit more than on the previous one. It feels toasty, a little bit smoky. Not really spicy actually. So also it leads me to maybe a little bit of cereals or mushrooms in the tertiary cluster. So let's taste it. Maybe we can also find out more aromas or flavors on the palate. Yes, cannelle, cinnamon, surely. So on the palate, it's dry. The acidity
But how does the winemaker produce a red wine? The biggest difference with white winemaking is the timing of the juice pressing. With red wine, the pressing won't happen until the fermentation is complete. Because the skins are not removed right away, they will impart color and characteristic flavor. Winemakers will run a few pumping overs or remontage, or punch down, which is known as pigeage. Agitating the stems, skins, and juice helps to extract color and tannins. And it is part of the winemaker's craft to know just when to use these techniques for the perfect balance. Once fermentation is complete, the juice in the tank is known as free-run wine. Now the red wine can finally be pressed. Once pressed, it is time to age your wine, and in Burgundy, that means aging in oak for the micro-oxygenation and spicy flavors it imparts. As for white wine, the winemaking process lasts between 12 to 24 months. The choice of oak affects the flavor of the wine. New oak imparts sweets and spicy notes reminiscent of clove and cinnamon, while old oak will soften the tannins and add a softer, mellow character. Oak barrels can be lightly toasted, which strengthens the surface without affecting the flavor of the wine. Or they can be medium to highly toasted to bring smokiness and cigar-like flavors to the wine. Each winemaker can choose to combine wines from different stages in the process or from different aging vessels to create their own unique and perfect blend. Then it's time for bottling.
I'm back! So, just to finish, I want to finish the tasting of that Volnay Premier Cru. So I was talking about the tannins, and then we have the aromas and flavors on the palate. Once again, I think there is much more sweet spices than what we detected on the nose, and I have this pepper feeling and also cinnamon, and it's very long. To me, it's more intense and longer than the previous one. But it's also quite young, so it will develop more complexity and more tertiary aromas with time. And you have seen that red wines are also aged in oak barrels for quite some time, and that's to develop this secondary aroma, but that's also to develop the structure of the wine, because the oak will give more tannins to the wine, and tannins and acidity are very important for the wine to age. And that's something very specific to Burgundy, is that they produce wine that can age for up to 10-15 years for the white, sometimes longer for Grand Cru, and for red wines 15-25 years, and sometimes they last up to 50 years for excellent vintages. So now we're going to end up our tasting in Pommard with the last glass. It's a village which is located in the north of Côte de Beaune, very near to Beaune, and which is focusing on the production of red wine only. This is something very specific to Pommard, so no white wine are labeled Pommard. In the Clos Marémonge that we are about to taste, Clos Marémonge itself is one climat, and within that climat there are 7 different plots that are blended together to produce the Clos Marémonge monopole that you have in the glass. But also, what is really specific about Château de Pommard and that wine, Clos Marémonge, is that the entire climat is following biodynamic principles. So this is something very specific, and I am going to transition to this nice explanation.
Château de Pommard began its biodynamic journey 2 years ago in Clos Marémonge, a 20-hectare vineyard surrounded by a 2-meter-high stone wall. A clos is a parcel of vineyard surrounded by stone walls. Clos Marémonge is owned by a private family, and it is one of the largest private wine monopoly in Burgundy. But what exactly is biodynamic agriculture? Biodynamics is a holistic, ecological, an ethical approach to farming, gardening, food and nutrition. This unique relationship to nature is rooted in the work of philosopher and scientist Dr. Rudolf Steiner, whose 1,924 lectures to farmers introduced a new way to integrate scientific understanding with respect for the underlying spirit in nature. Biodynamic farms and gardens are inspired by the biodiversity of natural ecosystems and the uniqueness of each landscape. Annual and perennial vegetables, herbs, flowers, berries, fruits, nuts, plus wild and native plants can all contribute to diversity, enhancing the health and resilience of the farm, which is understood to be a living organism. Diversity in domestic animals is also beneficial, as each animal species brings a different relationship to the land. Biodynamic compost is enhanced and enlivened through the use of 6 herbal preparations made from yarrow, chamomile, stinging nettle, oak bark, dandelion, and valerian. In addition to composting, several biodynamic preparations are used to bring healing, vitality, and sensitivity to the farm and garden. For example, horn manure enhances the life of the soil and the relationship between soil and plants, and is made from cow manure buried inside a cow horn during the winter months. Biodynamics farmers and gardeners observe the rhythms and cycles of the earth, sun, moon, stars, and planets, and they seek to understand the subtle ways that the environment and wider cosmos influence the growth and development of plants and animals. Biodynamic calendars enhance this awareness and understanding by providing detailed astronomical information and indicating the optimal times to sow, transplant, cultivate, harvest, and to use the biodynamic preparations. Biodynamic experts consider the position of the moon, whether it's waxing or waning, and its position in front of constellations, represented by earth, air, fire, and water, to decide when it's best to treat the plant with compost, dynamic preparations, and infusions.
So, I hope you learned a lot about biodynamic, but biodynamic can seem complex or esoteric, so feel free to raise some questions if you didn't get that clear. What are the differences between biodynamic, organic agriculture, and conventional agriculture? I will be pleased to answer them. So feel free to raise them in the chat, and meanwhile, I will guide you through the tasting of our last wine, but not the least, and that's our Clos Marémonge 2016 in Château de Pommard. So just to clarify, 2016 is the first vintage when all the grapes were produced biodynamically, so following this principle. So what is wrong with conventional agriculture? We cannot say it's really wrong. But actually they are using a lot of chemicals, a lot of synthetic components that if we use too many of them, or if we consume too many of them in the fruits, in the wine, in everything we eat, it happens that we can get sick or some problems, and on top it's not environmental friendly. So when we use biodynamic principles, it is very much more made by nature and respectful to the environment. So back to our tasting. What about the color of this wine? Clearly it's darker than the other two. It's clear. I would say it's medium. It's between pale and medium, but actually you cannot read through the glass. There is much more color. And on the nose, oh yeah, sorry, it's medium color, and also it's ruby. It's quite young, 2016, so it didn't move to garnet yet, but it will evolve to that color afterwards. On the nose, it's clean, it's intense. I think it's the most intense wine from our tasting flight today. We have floral notes. I get a little bit of rose or peonies. We have red fruits and black fruits, ripe strawberries, cherries, a little bit of blackberries as well. But what I like the most is it feels a little bit like oriental perfume. So there is like this sandalwood feeling. It's oaky, spicy at the same time. Everything is well integrated. So yeah, a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of toastiness. And we already get a little bit of forest floor and mushroom, which is very typical of Pinot Noir when it starts aging. And it will develop further, sometimes all the way to truffle and leather game a little bit. Pepper, yes, I agree with that. So now, on the palate. It's dry. The acidity is high. There is also quite a lot of tannins. It's still medium, but we can really feel it. But they are very silky and well integrated. But don't forget that acidity and tannins are very important for the aging potential of your wine. So if we have a lot of acidity and quite some tannins for wine which is from 2016, you can be sure that in 15 years, 20 years of time, you will still have acidity and tannins if you store your wine correctly, meaning at a cool temperature, in a dark room, with no variation of temperatures. So, body, it's medium body. Flavors, I get a lot of complexity, red fruits, black fruit, flowers, sweet spices, toastiness, oakiness. Quite nice, and it's very long. I still have it, although I tasted it a couple of minutes before. So yeah, clearly Clos Marimonge 2016 is one of my favorite wine. And why is that? Because it's complex, it's well balanced, everything is well integrated, and also we can feel there is a potential to age. So what's really interesting is to try it now, try it maybe every year up to 10, 15, 25 years. That's very interesting to see how the wine evolves. So, let me throw you a couple of questions. So we are at question number 4. No, because we had this little interruption, we are at question number 5. So, question number 5. What is special about Clos Marimonge 2016 vintage? It is the first shank, or a spicy green curry. Well, a spicy green curry actually would probably overpower the wine. Remember that Pinot Noir is very delicate, so if you and actually it gives me I didn't receive any other answers. But it gives me the opportunity to talk about wine and food pairing. So, in the answers, you had fresh oysters or a nice salmonière, which is fish with cream. And actually, a salmonière would be the perfect pairing with a white wine. White wine, as we said in Burgundy, are usually full body, very rich, especially in Côte de Beaune and a little bit also in Côte de Nuit. And it's very nice with a creamy dish, sometimes some poultry or goat cheese, for example. And then red wine, they can be paired with a lot of different things. It could be Chinese food like Peking duck, it could be American hamburger or T-bone barbecue. It could also be, as we like to do it in Burgundy, nice wild pheasant or wild doe. So there is a lot of option, and also it fits well with some type of cheeses like Comté, Emmental, these type of things. So we are about to close our experience for today. I hope you enjoy your time with us. I also hope you enjoy the wine, and mostly that you learn a lot. So feel free to join us again and to experience another online experience on Bordeaux, Alsace, or whatever you prefer. And see you soon!